Coming up today on The Story.
I couldn't swim properly. I had no idea about an undertow. So I got pulled out, and the cars and the houses on the beach got smaller and smaller. And then a guy came past on a boogie board. So I grabbed his boogie board and sort of tried to tell him, take me back. But we all both got pulled back outside. So he kicked me in the head. And the last thing I remember was a big foot in my face, and I passed out.
The Story.
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colefax. Welcome to The Story. Well, last time we heard from Honi Reifler, who shared the miraculous way the Lord helped her and her husband John start the Sherwood Christian Rehab Centre near Coffs Harbour in New South Wales. This time, John is with us to share even more incredible stories of how the Lord has worked in their lives. He'll begin by sharing about his life growing up in Switzerland and will eventually tell the unforgettable story of how he and Honi met and married. Those stories and more are all coming up today as John Reifler has a chat with Eric Scatterbo.
John Reifler, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Eric.
Glad to have you with us. Yeah, we want to hear your story, your side of the story. She said you were born in Switzerland?
I was born in Switzerland many, many years ago.
Okay, and how old were you when you came over to Australia? Is there a story behind that?
I came to Australia when I was 20. I migrated from Switzerland. Well, what happened? My youth, I had a troublesome youth. I came from a good family, but I started drinking very early, maybe when I was 15, 16 years old. I did my apprenticeship at General Motors, and then I went to the Army. I did my Army training, but alcohol and crime played a big part of my youth. Well, we tried to commit a crime. Well, I suppose we did. We held up the express train from Germany to Italy, trying to do a train robbery like Ronald Biggs did. And we thought, oh, well, he got away with something $1 million, so we'll get the postal wagon. And there was 5 of us, 5 young guys. And the train stopped. We stopped the train out in town at night. And then when the train stopped, all the other 4, they got cold feet, and they hopped in the car and they took off and left me standing there.
Oh, wow.
And it was winter, it was snowing, it was raining, it was sleet everywhere, and I didn't know what to do. So I heard the police cars coming, so I climbed a poplar tree on the side of the road. It's about 20 metres high, and I couldn't run fast enough, so I climbed this tree about close to midnight, and I'm up this tree. The police was down below, the dogs were walking around, but it was snow and sleet and muddy, and just so I think they couldn't pick up my scent. And I'm up on this tree for about two and a half hours, freezing like anything, and I started thinking about my life, and I thought to myself, John, if you keep this up, you're going to end up in jail for a long time. And then when everything quietened down, I climbed down, went home, and I thought, I got to do something. And then I was coming home on a Saturday night, drunk, and I woke up on Sunday morning, and I watched a TV documentary of Australia. Australia, the land of opportunity, flowing with milk and honey, and the Australian government was looking for migrants. That was in the late 60s. And actually 1968 it was. And I thought to myself, wow, that sounds good. And then I had the statistics came through. There were 3 females per male. And I had this urge, and I thought, I'm needed over there, definitely. So on Monday, I rang up the Australian consulate and filled in an application form and had to do a criminal records check. But, of course, I didn't have a criminal record, not because I didn't do anything, but I haven't been caught. And so the Australian government paid $605 towards my world trip. I left Switzerland on Genoa in Italy, by boat through South Africa, and then Perth, Melbourne and Sydney. But I had a bit of a hiccup on the boat between Perth and Sydney. There was 1,600 migrants on the boat, 400 sailors. And most of them from England, a few from Switzerland, a few from all over Europe who migrated. And I was drunk that night at the bar, and one bloke started to hassle me. And so I picked up one of them heavy square ashtrays, glass ashtrays, and I threw it at him, and he ducked, and it hit the bar and the mirrors behind the bar with all the bottles hanging on the wall there, and everything came crashing down. And so next morning, the immigration officer came to see me, and he said, "John, you are no longer free to roam around Australia. You have to go to a detention centre." And I said, okay. And he said, "If there's one more incident, you go back home. You'll send you back." And then we arrived in Sydney, and a Swiss friend that I used to work with at the General Motors in Switzerland, he then came up the gangplank, and the officer was watching me at from the deck. And he kept watching me to make sure I was going on one of the Greyhound buses down below. There were 6 or 8 buses lined up down below, and he told me to go bus number 2, and I yelled back, number two, pretending I'm going there. And my friend comes up the gangplank and he says, come on. And I said, "Don't talk to me. Turn around, park your car in front of the bus, number 2, and we'll go. Don't talk to me, don't look at me." And so he did. He went up the top, turned around, went down, parked his car on the side of the bus where they couldn't see me from the deck, and we hopped in, and that was it. And so I never went to a detention centre. I was supposed to go to Bonegilla, wherever that was.
All this was to avoid going to a detention center.
That's all. I was basically avoided detention centre, and then I stayed in Sydney, got a job, got there on Sunday, got a job on Wednesday at Muse Motors in Sydney, and there I was. And then I thought, I'll start a new life. I'll get going again. No drinking, nothing. Didn't work. Started going to nightclubs and partying, working, and I just thought to myself, well, there's got to be more to life. Then we went swimming at Maroubra, and I nearly drowned. I couldn't swim properly. I had no idea about an undertow. So I got pulled out, and the cars and the houses on the beach got smaller and smaller. And then a guy came past on a boogie board, so I grabbed his boogie board and sort of tried to tell him, take me back, because I was drowning. And he tried to paddle me back onto the beach, but we all both got pulled back outside. So he kicked me in the head. And the last thing I remember was a big foot in my face, and I passed out.
Oh, wow.
And then while I was in the water unconscious, I saw myself in a big air bubble, and I saw the fish and everything go past. And it was total silence. And then a deep voice came and said, in my language, "Jean-Pierre, tu gauche ne voloni evicate." In other words, "Jean-Pierre, you are going to a lost eternity." And then my whole life, all my criminal activity, flashed past me in my mind like a video or a DVD. And this is before video and DVDs. How about that, eh? And then I woke up on the beach, and they talked about hospital, and I heard hospital, and I said, no hospital. I couldn't speak English. So the boys took me home, and for 3 days I was in absolute mental agony. I didn't know what to do. I was confused, and I heard this voice all the time, God, God, God. And I said to my friend, what's life all about? And he said, oh, listen, what's the problem? And I said, I can hear God all the time, you know. And he said, you better pray. And I said, listen, prayer is for old women and kids. I don't pray for no one. Next day I asked him again, and I said, look, give me something a bit more concrete, you know, than just praying and stuff. And he said, read your Bible. And I said, I don't want to read the Bible. It's just not for me. And then it was Saturday night. We all going out to the nightclubs. I was so sick, Eric, I couldn't. I had a bleeding stomach ulcer. I was sick as a dog. I weighed 47 kilos.
Wow.
And I couldn't go.
Did you ever find out how you managed to go from way out in the ocean to being on the beach?
No, the surf lifesavers picked me up.
Oh, okay. So you were rescued.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. The surf lifesavers, I don't know how they happened, but they pulled me in on a rope.
Oh, okay.
This is what they told me afterwards.
Yeah,
they pulled me in on a rope, and then they tried to revive me on the beach, and I came good.
Okay.
And then, so I prayed, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do? And Mum forced me to take a Bible. Now, I come from non-Christian parents, but my mother was a strong Catholic, And she said, take a Bible. I said, Mum, I'm going to Australia. I don't want a Bible. She said, take it. It's like a good luck charm, like a talisman, you know. Anyway, so I took it anyway because I didn't want to disappoint my mother with packing my bags and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I just picked it up and I was just reading it. I don't know what I read, but it was amazing. I just understood for the first time in my life who Jesus was, what he came to do, and that he loved me and forgave me. And then I thought, I better pray.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lying on the bed. I'm thinking, how can I pray? I don't know how to pray. So I remembered 5 different prayers that I'd seen in movies. Hands folded, kneeling, standing, prostrate on the bed, on the floor. And I just remembered some prayers from the movies. And so I thought, I didn't know which one had worked, so I prayed all 5 prayers. And all I said, God, if you're there, I am useless. I am no good for nothing. I'm lost. If you can use me, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. I will ask no questions. I will do whatever you ask me to do. I'll give you my life, lock, stock and barrel. That's it. And I finished. And guess what happened?
What happened?
Nothing. Nothing. And then I thought to myself, I knew it. It's a whole lot of rot. My father was right. My father always told us as kids, God was invented by man to make money. And I went with that. I was very depressed and I felt down and I felt rejected. And that went on for about 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, a hot flame started on the bottom of my feet while I was lying on the bed. And it moved up my body very slowly, about 4 inches apart, 4 inches wide. It's like a really hot flame. I didn't see a flame, but it felt like it. Went straight up my body, past my head, and I collapsed on the bed, and I cried, and I cried. I don't know how long, 10 minutes or 2 hours, I have no recollection. And I went to sleep. And Eric, the next morning, I woke up a new man. I have never touched alcohol, never committed a crime, never touched a woman that wasn't mine. I totally had a born-again experience. And I believe it was because I totally come to the end of my life and I totally surrendered.
You're listening to The Story. Our guest today is John Reifler, husband of our guest last time, Honi Reifler. Together, they are the founders of the Sherwood Christian Rehab Centre near Coffs Harbour in New South Wales. And as we've been hearing, today John is sharing his story and how he became a Christian in Australia after growing up in Switzerland. Next, we'll hear John's side of the story of how he met and married Honi. All that and more is coming up when we return.
The Story.